I don't even know how we got here. How did we arrive in this?
Incredulous.
I almost can't believe what I just read. I want to reread it, frankly. I mean, is this true? This is a nonsense. I mean, the whole diversity thing. Look, if you can get more representation of your country or wherever into the armed forces, then fantastic. But primarily, be a skilled soldier, be big, be strong, be prepared to do all the things you need to do to join the military. End of story. And if anyone's monkeying around with daft initiatives about, well, we haven't got anybody in from, with an accent like this or somebody of this particular gender, something's
Well,
gone.
I'm sorry.
I mean, this is just low.
No, we want a lean, mean fighting machine, and that's it. We want people who are robust and resilient. That's
simple as that.
I'm sorry, who cares about diversity? I mean, you're not thinking about diversity when you're getting eye surgery or when you're about to go up in a plane, but somehow we're talking about diversity in our defences, like in our armed forces, and we're not a serious country. Over the last 10 years, the armed force personnel has gone down by 14%, and we're not talking about that because the RAF are too busy paying out straight white men £5,000 in compensation for discriminating against them for wanting to become RAF pilots. That is the state of this country. We are not a serious country. We shouldn't be talking about diversity in our armed forces. The fact that this man has to cite the war in Ukraine and Russia to talk about our army is ridiculous. That's the fundamental duty of any government, to defend the country.
Yeah. Yes, but you see, this is on the day that the Prince of Wales, a very expensive aircraft carrier, was unable to leave port to go and replace another aircraft carrier that wasn't working and was malfunctioning. So whilst I applaud, sort of, the Defence Secretary for calling this stuff out, the fact that it's been going on for so many years, the fact that we haven't been recruiting the right people should get the job. And in fact, what they should, if you really want to focus on diversity, you deal with misogyny, you deal with racism, you deal with homophobia within the service to make sure that everybody who is there is welcomed and looked after and doing and fighting, being part of that fighting force and being part of it. You don't need 100 different groups. You don't need 10 different groups to deal with different kinds of LGBTQ plus whatever aspects. Of course, you need some groups. By all means, make sure that particularly within the armed services, I dare say mental health is probably more important than perhaps in other areas. But frankly, the focus and where our money is going, given that we need to spend our money more effectively, I find it absolutely extraordinary that we don't have ministers. Instead of saying we've got to put more money into various services, whether it be the health service or defence or anything else, can we just spend the money that we have better? Can we make sure that things work? Can we make sure that we stop with these ridiculous payouts? Can we make sure that we remove the stupid courses that are no longer necessary to ensure that your money, my money, our money is spent effectively and that they do the job they're meant to do?
But don't you think that this story is just a little convenient for the Defence Secretary? As you were saying, there are much bigger problems within the Ministry of Defence, like things not working, like not having enough investment, like not having enough tanks that work, like not having whatever it might be.
Oh, you don't get me started on tanks. The gazillions that they spent on tanks that no longer work.
That don't work because they can't work in sand, or whatever it might be. We know all about these issues, and it just seems to me that the Secretary of State for Defence knows perfectly well that there are certain newspapers that are going to absolutely lap up one little quote that involves the word woke, and suddenly, bang, he's got himself some coverage, and he's looking like a warrior, a Defence Secretary who's fighting a war on woke. And I just think it's way too convenient.
I would believe that if the RAF didn't have to pay out people for discriminating against them and calling them useless white male pilots.
But that story's an old story.
But it's only 2 years old.
No, what I mean is he's getting coverage today, jumping on the bandwagon of something that we know happened 2 years ago that is being fixed. Yes, it's ridiculous that the compensation is being paid.
Yes.
But as I said, you're right. But as I said, this is a nothing to see here kind of distraction tactic. And it's like there is this stuff going on, but also there seems to be a realisation or a lack of a realisation, either at the top of government or indeed at the top of defence, that we have to spend our money more effectively, in addition to the fact that we're probably going to spend more.
There are genuinely groups of people whose job it is to try and get this whole diversity agenda accelerated as fast as they can. They won't be happy until they've got a woman in a hijab as a submachine gun operator or a non-binary head of the Sea Cadets or whatever the heck it is. That is some of these people are fascinated, but this is what gets them out the bed in the morning.
We know that, and this is the case across Whitehall as well. There's all this nonsense being spent on diversity, equality and inclusion. But the deeper issue is actually the lack of recruitment, the lack of actual members of the armed force, the fact that young people don't want to sign up, they don't want conscription, they would not go and fight for their country because, frankly, what are they fighting for? The fact that we are so unprepared that if we're on... OK, we're not about to face World War III, but we're not on any kind of war footing with a really quite dangerous international situation. We don't have the military hardware. We don't have factories
I think that's right. And one of the
that are
reasons
ready to start making this stuff. We don't have ammunition. We've heard about this for weeks now, how very unprepared we are.
I think that's absolutely right. One of the reasons I just do think there's a red herring element to this is one of the elements of this story, which sounds terrible. Ministry of Defence has 93 different diversity networks for personnel to discuss race, gender and mental health. It can be revealed. All that means is there are 93 WhatsApp groups, there are 93 Facebook communities. It's nothing to do... these are just individuals who are talking to each other. They are groups of people. It is not a diversity push on behalf of the MOD. So it's going to be, a group, Sikh soldiers talking to each other or, lesbian soldiers talking to each other.
That they are meant to be doing? And I think that there is a huge question because very often we're asked to put our hands in our pockets for more money, more tax. We need to do this, we need to do that. And yet there is no one looking at how our money that has already been committed has been spent and allocated. And if they are spending their time and efforts and money on recruitment processes that don't work, on equipment that isn't functioning, on a whole range of systems that aren't performing, that is a problem.
All of that is true, but you have got stories such as this, more madness from the military, soldiers being told to avoid Christian elements in acts of remembrance. This is Army guidance that states that acts of remembrance on Armistice Day and others should be inclusive and seek to avoid being conducted as a holy religious event. Grant Shapps,
this is an outrage.
Jewish himself, is furious about it because he believes Christian remembrance services are at the core of the nation's
history. Here's the thing. I know this sounds strange, but we're not France, right? There's no separation of church and state in this country. This is actually a Christian country. As uncomfortable it is from some people who seem to think, I don't know, they're in like South Korea or something. This is a Christian country that is the basis of many of our public institutions. I can't believe anyone has the audacity to say that, seriously. Because if you're uncomfortable with the fact that actually this is a Christian country that is tolerant of other faiths, then you might as well leave. I'm sorry.